Hey guys, look what I got. That's right, I got the new E-flite UMX Citation Longitude. In this video, we are going to unbox it. We're going to take a nice close inspection all over this thing so you get a really detailed look at it. We are going to bind it to the radio and move the control surfaces, see how we like things. Then we're going to do a twin EDF test, and finally wrap things up with our pros and cons at the end. Coming up next, we're going to see what's going on inside the box. All right, guys, here is a look inside the box at this RC plane. As you can see, there is no battery, there's no radio, there is no charger. The only thing that comes inside the box of a bind and fly basic, which is what this is a receiver installed in the plane. And that receiver is a Spectrum receiver, so it will only work with Spectrum radios. Coming up next, we're going to take this thing out of the box and take a closer look. Okay guys, so this is what it looks like in its natural environment. And with a jet, usually you're sitting on the tail, the nose is pointing up if there's no battery in the fuselage, and there is no battery in this fuselage right now. My first initial takeaways are this thing has a ton of lights. I really like the silver, I think it's plastic pieces around in front of the EDF units. That looks remarkable. The only kind of takeaway that was negative that I saw, and it's not that big of a deal, the more of these I do, the less and less irritated I get by stuff like this, is there's some dents on the wing, kind of by the fuselage on the top. Not the worst thing in the world. When you're flying it, you're never going to see it. So we're going to do an up close tour here coming up next, and I'll let you make up your mind whether you think that's a big deal or not. And coming up next, you're going to see this thing very close. All right, guys, we are getting up close and personal. We're going to see all the defects that this thing may or may not have, depending on how you look at things. Going to pop that off right there. Look inside the battery bay. We have the red JST plug. No proprietary stuff going on here. So for our 3S pack, that's right guys, 3S on this twin EDF Jet. I love it. Very cool. And right here, we're going to take a nice close look at the silver on the front of the EDF unit. Now I noticed that there's a little bit of glue or something that's on there that takes away a little bit of that shine, but from a distance you're not going to notice that. Right here, can't really get the light right, so it definitely shows that it's not that big of a deal. Those dents right there in the foam, this foam is really fragile, this type of UMX foam, and dents just are part of what happens, guys. So if that happens to your plane, just know that that's kind of par for the course. I have reviewed a million UMX planes, and almost every one of them had something like that. And yeah, overall, looking pretty nice. Let's take a nice close look at this full functioning stab, horizontal stab. There's a little slop in it right here, but I think that's by design. Look, lights, guys. There are these little lights everywhere on this thing, which is awesome. Yeah. The paint, the colors, everything looks pretty good overall. These wingtips are plastic. So if you scuff the wingtip for some reason, you are golden in that regard, which is very nice. One thing that I did notice is the symmetry on the landing gear, and this, I can easily bend this back, it's not a big deal, but it's a little bit off, toeing in a bit. However, there is a little spring there, a little oleo action going on, which is very nice. And then we got a similar deal right there on the nose gear, and that looks pretty good, which is really important for taxiing and things like that. I believe it has a steerable nose wheel. We'll check that out a little bit later on when we can check the control surfaces and other things like that after we've bound up the plane. And right here, we've got more lights, which is awesome. And we've got, when you belly land, if you decide to belly land, because the landing gear does come off pretty easy. Let's see here if we can get a little closer without wigging out the camera. You can pop that out with the mains. I'm not sure, actually, it's fairly straightforward here, popping out that on the main nose, which is cool. So yeah, we've got servo protectors right here, which is very common in UMX planes that are belly landers, so that's cool. And make sure that these are securely glued on. Sometimes they skimp on the glue and then these come off when you land or in flight, and trying to find those in a field, it's very thin plastic generally, so make sure that's nice and secure, because you can and will lose them. Murphy's Law for you there. And same thing on the other side. Lots of cool scale details, guys. And some plastic bits right there on the aileron and on the inner part of the main wing. I'm guessing a little extra stability coming from that. Very cool. All right, guys, I am going to bind this up. I think, well, let's take a look at this side. Yeah, everything looks pretty good. One thing that I did just notice, that we've got a sticker back here. I'm not sure if that's needed or if we're just missing one back here or something, but honestly, I don't care. That kind of stuff on a plane like this is not gonna make or break it, in my opinion. So there you go. All right, coming up next, we're gonna have this thing all bound up to the radio and we're gonna do some testing. As you can see, guys, the lights on this thing are very plentiful and very bright. We're gonna do some dark stuff here in a minute, but first, 100% rates on the ailerons, 100% rates on the elevator. I may need to do some tuning with that little U-bend thing on the elevator, but we'll see. I'll take a little closer look when I am able to find a nice flat level thing without bright studio lights blasting my eyes. And here's the rudder, and you'll notice there is a steerable nose wheel, which is cool. And all right, guys, coming up next, I'm going to get in a position where I can hold on to this thing and make those twin EDFs sing. That's all coming up next. All right, guys, let's give this thing a go. All right, guys, I'm gonna play that back. We'll cover whatever I hear in the pros and cons. I got that up to, I believe, 70% on the throttle stick, and it definitely sounded better at the higher RPMs, but we'll see. We will see when I put this in the air. In the meantime, coming up next, we're gonna see what this thing looks like in complete darkness. Check out those lights, guys. Speaking of things that you should check out the links in the description of this video. You'll find a link to this plane, the battery that I'm using to supply this, my radio, my lighting equipment, the camera that I use, all sorts of good stuff. And it also helps support the channel when you click on those links. So coming up next, we're gonna take a quick look inside the battery bay, look at the battery that I'm using and plan to use for my maiden flight. And then after that, we're gonna do our pros and cons. So before we take a look inside the battery bay, I want you to watch the ailerons. So this thing, as soon as you bind it, it activates safe. And that is on the A switch of my DX6. And if you'll notice, in fact, I'll keep it to the side here in the frame. Take it off. Now it's just an AS3X. So you've got your safe in your AS3X. That is pretty cool. And while I'm holding onto this thing, this is a look at the battery that I plan to use. It is all the way forward. I have not checked the CG. One thing that I noticed in the manual is that the CG is not super clear. The image is not very precise, and these UMX planes are generally pretty CG sensitive, so I may be rolling the dice with this, flying with this, but we'll see. We will find out when I'm mating this thing. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this thing up with our pros and cons. As far as the pros go, you can see them right there in your face. All those lights look fantastic. Twin 30mm EDF units running on 3S. Two big pros right there. The landing gear is a major upgrade to the UMX A10, which is pretty much the only thing that's comparable to this that has been out there. So that is awesome. I also look forward to more twins coming in the near future. I think they did a good job overall with this thing, so that's cool. As far as the cons go, we have a few dents in the wing, a little bit of glue coming on into that nice chrome area. And of course, we've got the towed-in main. Nothing major. And the EDFs on the lower throttle was making some potentially weird oscillations. You don't really know until you get outside, so it's kind of tough to be a major con as far as that goes. But that's certainly something to watch. With all that being said, like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to check the links in the description to help support the channel. And GBLynden out.